This exhibition, Feminist Futures, acknowledges an ongoing struggle for women's rights, but most importantly, part of the title, we have artists, constellations, and connections, also emphasizes this need for solidarity and community. In other words, working together to achieve social justice, but also a better working environment for women, better social conditions, and also in terms of art and the cultural sphere, a better space to create.
This exhibition was so exciting for us, and it was a very artist-driven process. So I think for our staff, our role was to support the artists in making their vision a reality, the approach they wanted to take to centering their work, helping support find the right work from our collection to share. And that helped me learn so much. In my role as a curator, I might be looking at these same objects with my perspective as an American art historian, as a curator who works with modern and contemporary art, whereas an artist who's a practicing artist, a teaching member of the faculty here, they'll be looking at those same artworks from their own experiences, their own perspective, and so I have so much to learn from what they share when they put that in context with their own artwork, and that really helps us achieve our goals as an academic museum even more.
It was a kind of collective decision to how we were going to shape the project. So it really was a collective of the 7 artists involved and thinking about the most interesting way that we could work with the museum and CSWS. And so there is a kind of history of artists making selections from the collections kind of exhibition. So this show is sort of a hybrid of featuring our work and then also how our own sensibilities are manifest in things that we select from the collection.
It was totally fascinating to work with my colleagues on this exhibition. I think we didn't know what to expect when we came into the space, and people responded very differently. Like my colleague Tarrah Krajnak pulled this Weston print that her work has literally been based on for years, and she was fascinated to find that it was in the collection. And for me, we found these very historical objects, from recent history to deep history to contemporary works. We were just excited to be able to go into the collection, study it, because we haven't been doing that in recent years, and bring these works together in the space.
The experience of putting these artworks in conversation with other faculty and my colleagues has been pretty fun. And I think also, I feel like that's probably what every one of us will say, that's been really fun and very enriching and rewarding, because we don't usually get to show together, although we do work together and we have conversations together. It's been gratifying to just connect with them as an artist in an exhibition and to see our shared interests, even just simply around color.
This was an interesting collaborative project, and we got to select a couple of works from the permanent collection at the JSMA. And the 2 pieces that I ultimately selected are by the artist Nellie Mae Rowe, who was an African-American artist born in 1900 in Georgia. And so you can imagine her experience growing up and encountering different obstacles was quite dramatic. Her project ultimately involved drawing, this kind of free association, very fluid, colorful watercolors and colored pencils. And it was really just her environment, the trees, her neighbors, dolls, toys, and community in the yard where she lived. So it was this really kind of jubilant and attractive congregational type of practice that brought a lot of people together, and I was really inspired by the joy that she basically externalized through her practice.
In museums, Feminist Futures means to me gender equity in the arts and in museum spaces. It means increasing accessibility and opportunities for everyone, especially making space for women and gender nonconforming artists, learning from and supporting communities that have historically been underrepresented and undercompensated in art spaces, looking at what we can learn in terms of indigenizing and decolonizing museum spaces there are so many people who are already working towards these goals right now in museums and in the arts world. So this feminist future is something that's achievable now, especially if we are opening doors and creating more opportunities for more voices and for more feminist perspectives in these spaces.
For me, the artists in this show are thinking through this theme of feminist futures as I've conceived of it, as challenging and confronting the different sort of mechanisms of power that restrict whose existence matters. And they're doing that in several different ways. They are confronting and challenging this idea that vision is neutral. They are challenging perceptions of nature. They're challenging the conditions of dislocation. And they're also questioning this predominant tendency to minimize the role of touch and sensation and feeling in producing knowledge. And one of the artworks by way of this last proposition that I put forward is Laura's work, Force Field, that for me is, I'll just describe it a little bit, is this work of paper, let's say, that's been perforated and cut to create this, net-like, suggests this net. It's just this permeable skin. And for me, it's this really big monumental piece that really is this sensing organ that's monumentalized. And for me, this piece is so meaningful or so suggestive because it creates this skin and this porous boundary where it's kind of eroding the illusion that our bodies are these hermetically sealed kind of containers, and instead they are intimately entangled and interdependent with their environments.
I love the future part of Feminist Futures, and hopefully it means that it's something that we are continually working towards and that we haven't quite reached yet, and that it goes maybe beyond this idea of gender equality and kind of becomes less universal and more understanding of specific differences that can happen across socioeconomic and environmental and geographic locations. So it's a hopeful term for me, in that it is a future that is yet to be made.
When I think about the theme Feminist Futures, I think about the past, my grandmother, my great-grandmothers, my ancestors, and I also think about my mother and my children and, future children and grandchildren. So in that way, it really is a continuum of the history and the present and the future. And I think about how we need to continue to care and fight for our values and the things that we believe in that has to do with our physical and spiritual autonomy and growth.
Feminist Futures, as a kind of theme for this exhibition, is interesting to me because it's an opportunity to think about the evolution of feminism in our culture and how we think about the world, and most importantly, perhaps thinking about how it shapes the future, how we imagine the future because of it.
When I was thinking about this theme of feminist futures, I started thinking about the late and always inspiring bell hooks, whose infinite wisdom instructs us that to end sexism, we also have to confront other imbalances of power, including racism and colonial power that structure the current society that we live within. And it's these conditions that shape every sort of individual existence. And thinking about feminist futures, for me, is a way to envision a world in which these various forms of existence are able to thrive, a world that can accommodate these various forms of existence. Feminist Futures is about surviving against the odds, and it's about transforming these ingrained systems so that everyone can live freely.
One of the things I love about CSWS is their non-hierarchical approach to research on campus. I love how when they're presenting the work of colleagues on campus, they're bringing external scholars and internal scholars together to build collective knowledge around someone's research practice. And so a feminist future to research is building collective knowledge, knowledge that's non-hierarchical, bolstering one another rather than asking us to prove our frame. So these are the things I really appreciate about CSWS and their approach to this year. Their 50th year anniversary is of collective and non-hierarchical scholarship and research building.